All right, so folks, congratulations. It's 2035. We have survived. We now have a space colony on the moon. There's research going on. There are radio telescopes, other types of telescopes. There's experiments for medicine, etc. Space economies are starting to take shape. Debris removal, in-space servicing, in-space assembly of satellites and other scientific instrumentation. The first crack at mining asteroids has begun. We have space habitats. People are living in space full time. And there's even this long-awaited space tourism that involves traveling to the moon and back. That's an incomplete list of what it could look like. I'm sure there's a lot more to add. So the question is, how did that actually happen? How did we harmoniously achieve that goal? And what decisions were taken in 2024? Did it happen through the Wild Wild West approach, which I think is what we live in right now? And I'm not saying that's wrong, but is that how we got to that type of future? Or on the other side, did we come together as humanity and put together judicial and fair space policies and space guidelines so we can achieve that future collectively? We chose to take the latter approach, and so our deliverable for the group is and we lowered the bar as much as possible. This is a preliminary list of space policy considerations. So on that incomplete list, we have things like what is the sovereignty of space-built structures that are either in orbit or on celestial bodies? You know, who owns them? How are the policies that we come up with, how are they enforced when someone violates it? What are the property rights? Who can own what? And we have an example of property mineral rights. Space debris. Can anyone pollute? Are they responsible to clean up after themselves? Do we all chip in through taxation to clean low Earth orbit and beyond? Who can terraform planets? Who has the right to do such a thing? What are salvage rights after the hardware is completed? Or here's a good one. We should have a requirement for any guideline to have a systems view. A systems view means think of the long-term implications. That would have been interesting during the first cars if we would have thought about the impact of gasoline combustion. Homesteading, space governance is on the list. Oh, and technology development. Can anyone just do a tech development somewhere in space? Are there guidelines behind that? So this is an incomplete list. I think it makes some sense for conversations rather than perhaps a Wild Wild West. That's it.
All right, great.
All right, no questions, right?
No. You actually left 2 minutes for questions.
A space policy lawyer walks into a bar and orders a cosmic cocktail. The bartender looks puzzled and asks, "What's that?" The lawyer grins and says, "It's 1 part international treaty, 2 parts liability clause, and a splash of orbital debris regulation, and a twist of extraterrestrial resource rights. Shake it up in zero gravity and serve it in a satellite dish." The bartender shrugs and replies, "Sorry, we don't have license to serve drinks that are out of this world." The lawyer sighs and says, "In that case, I'll just have a Moonhattan. I hear they're subject to lunar law anyway."
You win. That's good.
As a space lawyer, I do not approve these jokes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Another battle on this? Yeah.
All right, I think you said the first question was about sovereignty.
Yeah.
All right, so the worst thing you can be in international law is stateless. So why would you want to push it? What's the point of evaluating the concept of sovereignty if you can never get away from terrestrial rules?
Because you can create your own state.
But can you? What are the 5 elements of creating a state? You have to have a territory, a population, the means to conduct foreign policy, and the ability to form a government. And the 5th one is what's going to get you. It's recognition. If you can get one state to recognize you, that's fine, but then you still have a problem. If that country recognizes you does not have space capabilities, where are you going to get the rest of your resources? Where are you going to get your resupplies? Where are you going to get your people? Because every other government will then start turning spaceports into actual airports, maritime ports, checking all kinds of stuff. We don't do that now. Also, nothing that flies into space actually technically leaves the territory of the country from which it launched. So you have to recreate a situation. So if you're in a EVA suit, you're still within the territory of the country that launched it. But the hypothetical I've pointed out to some people is, if you want to really get away from these rules, let's say that you figured out your logistics, consider this. There are places in space, especially on Mars, where you could take off your suit and walk around. It's not, advised, but you could. In that case, could you live in that environment and then apply these principles and say, look, I am in a certain way shedding my state of nature from the old paradigm into the new. But that again goes to a simple issue, which is, what was the first nation on this planet? It was France when it created its revolution. And the reason it was is because it was the first time that it was about a territory and an ideology. So what are you pushing up against when you say that you want to get rid of sovereignty? So you have the physical aspect, you have the philosophical aspect, and then you have the actual implementation of the legal rules, so to speak. So I'm just curious, because I see this reflected over and over and over again, that everybody wants their own state. But again, I say, being stateless is literally the worst place you can be. You can watch The Terminal with Tom Hanks to find out why. But there are more extreme examples.
Right.
So do you want to be that guy that's stateless in space?
Yeah, and I think you're highlighting the complexity of that topic.
As many seasteaders had to find out. It's not great on international waters either. Thank you so much.
Okay.